In the know with Realtor Roshan, let's unpack home and auto insurance. Hi everyone, my name is Roshan Basnet, real estate broker with Right and Wrong Realty, and I help you buy and sell in Oakville and Burlington, and I go where my clients take me. I have a great privilege to introduce to you Stephen Warnica from Warnica Insurance, who is going to tell us a little bit more about home and insurance. Hi Steve. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, a little bit about myself. As Roshana mentioned, my name is Stephen Warnica, President and Principal Broker of Warnica Associates Insurance located in Burlington. We service directly straight across the province. We are a full service insurance brokerage, and we pride ourselves on being there with the client from the quote process right through to the issuing of the policy and when they need us most at the claim.
Are you locally from Burlington?
I am, yes. Yeah, born and raised in Burlington. Beautiful wife of almost 15 years. Her name's Shazia. I've got two children that live here in the community and attend school in Burlington, as well as two Chihuahuas, and depending on the day, depends on how much I enjoy having them.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about Warnica Insurance.
No, for sure. So Warnica Insurance is a full service brokerage. We operate out of Burlington, Ontario, but we service directly across the province.
Okay.
So I have clients from Burlington to Kingston to Windsor and all the way up north as well.
Okay. And are you a principal broker?
I am. So I'm the principal broker and the president of Warnica Associates Insurance.
Great. And so what do you specialize in? Home, auto, or what are the policies?
Yeah, you know, the easiest way to think about it is if you can live in it, drive in it, or work in it,
yes,
I can insure it. So I offer home, auto, and commercial business insurance.
Warnica Insurance versus, for example, TD Insurance. What's the difference?
The main difference is one is an agent or a direct writer, where I act as a broker. So the main difference between an agent, a direct writer, and a broker is that agents and direct writers have access to one insurance provider, where brokers, we shop the market and have access to multiple insurance providers. That would be the main difference between a direct writer and a broker like myself.
I see. So if I come to you, you can sort of analyze my situation and then pick the right insurance company that matches my risk profile?
That's correct, Roshan. You know, one of the benefits of working with a broker is that we can evolve with you as your insurance needs change.
Got it.
So if you don't fit into the box that a direct writer is looking for, and there may be a change to your driving record, your insurance needs, you may have to shop elsewhere, and that direct writer may not have the option to do so. So if I have a client that you know, had a bad year, and maybe had a few speeding tickets, convictions, accidents, things like that, I wouldn't have to tell them to look for a different provider. I would be able to do that on my own within my own firm.
Oh, great. So you work with many different insurance companies, essentially.
I do. So that is what being a broker is. So being a broker means that we have the option and the ability to shop through different insurance providers. You know, one of the other differences that I let clients know or potential clients know is that I work directly for the client, where a direct writer works directly for the insurance provider. So I have multiple insurance providers, so standard insurance companies that everybody's heard of, and then as well as that, on top of that, we have what are called MGAs. We have almost an unlimited amount of MGAs. Those are managing general agencies, and those are usually a niche product. Maybe you don't fit into the mold of what a standard insurance provider is looking for. Okay,
so when somebody comes to you, you know, obviously you probably have a lot of questions that you'll ask. You do some work, and then you, based upon my risk profile, you'll find some of this insurance partner. That's a lot of work that you are doing even prior to submitting the insurance. So how much do I have to pay you?
All of our payments come directly out of the commission paid by the insurance provider. So there's no additional fees on top of the services that I'm providing. We get paid, and it's general knowledge, and I always provide my clients with a commission disclosure.
Okay.
We get paid generally 12.5% on auto insurance, and we get paid 20% of the premium on property insurance. Now that does vary depending on the risk, and it can go down from there. Typically does not go up, but it can go down depending on the risk. There's a lot of work that goes into finding the correct insurance policy for a client prior to issuing a policy. There's a lot of questions that need to be asked to make sure that we are aware of what we're insuring,
Yes.
to make sure that the insurance provider is aware of what they're insuring, and that in the event of a claim, that policy is going to be valid and active to be able to respond to that claim.
Yeah, and I think another advantage of working for yourself, is a little bit more accessible.
I would say so. Yes, I would say so. One of the common complaints I get from clients who are working with a direct writer or with a firm not similar to mine is that they feel like a number. Most of my clients have my cell phone number and they're all willing to or able to have it. I am the contact, so when I sell you a policy, I'm the one that you call in the event of a claim. I'm the one that you call in the event of a policy change, maybe a new driver, maybe a new property, but I am your contact from the start to the finish of that policy and all the way through.
I love it. I mean, I'm a solo real estate broker myself, and that's one of the things that I tell a lot of homeowners is that when you're working with me from start to finish, it's me. Okay, so you could choose to work with a bigger team and just, it's a lottery pick who you get, but working for yourself, for example, on the insurance side, it's you from start to finish, and also it's start to finish, it's me.
Yeah, I think it's a great service we both offer.
Yeah.
I think, stability throughout the process and being able to build that relationship and starting to understand the needs of that client goes a long way.
Yeah. If someone comes to you for insurance, where do they start?
Yeah, so most of my clients are referrals, are friends and family of existing clients, and I think that's the biggest compliment that a professional like the both of us can have. When an existing client is willing to share my information with a family member, it shows me I've done a great job with that client.
When they contact you, then you basically go through questions, and that's how you evaluate.
That's correct, yeah. So when a client comes on, we obviously start with the basic information, name, phone number, address obviously is important, contact information. Then from there, it's getting down into the detail of the specific policy that they're looking for. I pride myself in asking the correct questions up front to be sure that a policy is going to respond in the event of a claim. So I go through great detail, asking everything I need to know about the house, everything I need to know about the auto, if I'm doing a business policy about the business, to be sure that I can offer the client the best advice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in real estate. One burning question I have is, before exploring homes for some of the home buyers, do they need to think about home insurance?
Yes, they do.
Because a lot of times it's just the glitz and glamour about renovated kitchen, renovated home, and people that home insurance may not always be in our minds.
It's not, and someone just recently going through a move. I think insurance on my end was the last thing that I did as well. But it's definitely something that should be brought into the conversation earlier on. Moving from one community to another, moving from city to rural, can really impact insurance rates. Moving from a modern built home to an older home can really impact insurance rates. So I think getting your broker, your agent, your insurance professional involved earlier in the process is a great idea. It's going to allow you to better budget. It's going to allow you to better understand that you are able to find insurance once you put a purchase on a property. Yeah. But I find I am lasty here. It's, I would say, if not every week, probably close to every week, I get a call from a client saying, I'm sitting at the lawyer's office, I got a closing today.
Holy.
And, yes, we're able to put it together, but it's a little bit of stress on the client, on the lawyer, on the agent, on the mortgage broker, on everybody involved in that transaction. It's a little bit of pressure at the end that maybe isn't required. So, yes, call your agent, call your broker prior to doing anything, get them involved and get their advice.
Typically, when you buy a home, you may have a 5-day financing period, and you may have a home inspection, sort of a condition in it. Maybe that's that 5-day period. They should actually contact you and say, hey, I'm purchasing this home. Any red flags? How we're doing in the home insurance side?
Yes, no, I think that's a great idea. I think that the earlier you can get a broker involved, someone like myself involved in that process, the better better you're going to be able to understand what your financial commitments are going to be to make sure that that home qualifies.
Yes.
And as well as that, moving from a city like Burlington, maybe outside of Burlington, to Hamilton, Mississauga, Toronto,
Yes.
is going to impact your auto insurance rate. So we can have a conversation about increased premiums there as well. So yes, I think if you could get them involved in that 5-day time frame,
Going forward, that's what I'm going to do.
I think it's a great idea, and I think you would make a lot of brokers happy by doing so.
Yeah. Because have you come across a situation that for any reason home insurance were declined?
Yes, I have. I'm a firm believer that almost everything can be insured. Okay, it really comes down to the premium that you're willing to pay for it, as long as the coverage requirements that you may or may not have. So yes, insurance policies can be declined, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a straight out decline across the insurance industry. It might be a standard insurance provider is going to decline a home, but it doesn't mean that a company that maybe does high risk or specialty insurance may not accept that offer.
So any examples of some reasons that you have come across why home insurance could have been declined?
Yeah, and maybe just circling back a little bit to your industry specifically.
Yes.
Aluminum wiring.
Okay.
Aluminum wiring is something that most insurance providers do not want to get involved with unless they have an ESA certificate or they have a licensed electrician's report showing that there are no deficiencies in that location. As well as that, there's other things. There's location. You could be in a high water damage area. You could be in a flood damage area. It could be previous claims history. It could be previous insurance history, previous cancellations that could have you decline. There's multiple reasons why a client could be declined.
Wow.
Not common necessarily, but there are reasons why.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that the journey is over. Right? We can find a solution. We will come up with something, and we'll work through it. And, I'll do everything within my power.
Yes.
I always say to agents like yourself, Roshan, I will not be the reason that a sale does not go through. Okay, so you're welcome. So making sure that number one, the client is taken care of, making sure that we have a solution that is going to fill the requirements of the mortgage, and making sure that coverage is well explained and well understood by the client is my number one job.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. What information do they have to have in hand for you to expedite your...
Yeah, so I've got a list of questions that I generally ask. I've got one of my screens will be open, and I just start at the top, go all the way through. The most common questions that typically require additional information, possibly from the current owner, possibly from the real estate agent, electrical, plumbing, heating, roof, water heater, update years and types.
Got it.
So those are the main ones that someone will generally have to go back to the current owner or to the real estate agent to clarify and confirm that information.
Great. So once we bundle that information, including the age of the house and all that good stuff, what's the typical turnaround time?
Pretty quick. So when I get a phone call from a client, usually at the start of the call, I will let that client know, as long as we can get the answers put together or get ourselves pointed in the right direction, I should have an indication of price by the end of the phone call. So you call me at 12 o'clock, maybe by 12:30, 12:20, we have all the information. By 12:30, we have an indication of price. Then it's my job to go into the background, possibly call the insurance provider to confirm eligibility, and then from there, we are ready to go. I can have a client, like I said earlier, in a lawyer's office, gather the information, and have a policy issued before the lawyer starts billing additional time.
Awesome.
So as long as the information is there, it can be done very quickly.
Yeah. Home and auto. We always hear this in commercials, every bundle and get 10%, 20% discount all the time. Is there an advantage in bundling?
Definitely. So there are definitely multi-policy or combined policy discounts when combining a property and an auto insurance. Okay. It is very rare that a property and an auto insurance policy is separated. There's usually specific reasons as to why. It could be that maybe they have claims issue on the home side and the auto company would not accept the home.
Got
It
it.
could be that their driving record is not accepted by the home insurance provider. But again, these are very rare situations. But yes, the best thing for you to do is to combine home and auto insurance together.
Okay, so I could be a first-time home buyer, and I could have, own my spouse, we could own two cars. And if I'm in a midstream of my insurance with, say, insurance company A, and I call you for home insurance, rather, then is there a period that this person has to wait until that existing auto insurance expires before I roll over? What happens in those situations?
Yeah, no, great question. So I deal with this all the time. So a lot of the times, home and auto insurance policies will not have the same renewal or expiry date, right? And then it's my job at that point to start doing rough calculations on cancellation fees. So to answer your question, you can switch insurance providers at any time throughout the policy term.
Okay.
So the catch is
Yes,
that there's a cancellation fee.
I see.
Okay, so it's based on unearned or earned premium. So the further into a policy term you are, the lower that cancellation fee becomes.
Absolutely.
So a lot of the times I'll have clients come in where I'm strictly quoting the home or I'm strictly quoting the auto, and then we find out the other renewal date. And I take a look at the savings that I'm able to provide.
Yes.
We do a rough calculation on what the cancellation fee would be.
Okay.
And then we make a determination. Am I saving more than I'm spending on a cancellation? And if I am saving more, then it makes sense to make a move. If I'm eating up all of my savings on a cancellation fee, then we start having a conversation and say, okay, you know what, in 2 months we're going to try again. In 4 months we're going to try again. We set a reminder to reconvene, and we take another look at it once those cancellation fees and the amount in savings, the savings is outweighing the cancellation.
Great. Savings is not always everything, because you don't want to underinsure and save yourself.
No. You know, when I look at clients and I look at quotes, I always quote the way that I would want myself or my family to be insured. Okay,
Makes
so
sense.
I always think, well, how would I want this done? And that's typically where I start from. So when I'm working with a client, premium is important, is very important.
Yes.
You know, with inflation and everything that's happening around us right now, you know, keeping some of those monthly expenses down is very important. But at the same time, coverage is important.
Yes.
So I always start with who's offering me the correct coverage for this risk. Then I'm looking at who's offering that coverage at the lowest premium.
Yes.
Right? So too often do I have clients come in from another firm, and I'm coming in higher on their, I'll just say, property insurance. And then I ask them, I say, can I see a copy of your existing policy?
Yes.
And I start going through and I say, well, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, yes, you have a great rate, but you don't have this, you don't have this. Your sewer backup limit is low, your flood coverage is low. You know, and then we start looking at the numbers, we say, well, for an extra $100 or $200 per year, here's what you're getting.
Yes.
And usually when it's brought to the attention of the client that there may be gaps or you know, coverages that are too low, they usually understand that, yes, I think I'm underinsured. And that comes back to brokers or agents not explaining to the client what they're insured for. So I make sure that on every single quote that I'm doing, we go through, I supply a copy of the quote. Let's have a conversation. Here's what you have, and here's what you don't have. And as long as you understand what you're insured for and insured against, then you're in a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like the fact you said, hey, I want you to be insured in just the manner as I insure my family.
That's correct.
Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a reassurance right there to know that you are looking after them with your
Yes.
home. Are there risks that increases the premium? For example, does having a swimming pool increase my insurance?
It can, yes. So we typically add on to the policy, we make a note which will then extend the liability from the home to the swimming pool. A few things that could increase that people may not be aware of are size of lot.
Oh, really?
So if we have, I believe, and don't quote me on this, I
Yeah.
want to say it's 13 acres or more, it's considered a rural property. It could even be a property that is outside of city limits and doesn't have the response time of emergency services. they're then going to have a higher insurance
Farther away from the fire department, for example.
That's it, right? That's it. So there's a lot of things that go into determining premium and determining what the calculation is going to be. When we start getting out into the country, it's going to take longer in the event that there's a claim and that property needs to be rebuilt.
Oh, yes.
So you're further from the material stores. It's going to take more transportation to get out there. Right, so that's going to increase building evaluation potentially, or at least it's going to be the debris removal cost is going to be increased because you're further from those services.
Wow, never looked at it from that angle.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. For home insurance, does the age of the house, how much does the age of the house has to do with insurance premium, for example?
It does. Mainly what they're looking for is they're looking for updates and renovations to that home.
Understood.
Yeah, now if we get into a home that is designated historic, that's a whole different situation.
Oh, really?
Okay,
Really?
so that's definitely going to change things. You know, it's an understanding of just how homes have evolved and understanding that, you know, from double brick to a wood frame, understanding that aluminum wiring was popular between the, you know, mid-60s to the early 70s. But really what the insurance companies are looking for is they're looking to be sure that the property that they're insuring has been well maintained and well updated.
Got it.
So if I have a home that I'm quoting on that was built in the 1950s and everything's been renovated and brand new in 2015, the insurance company is going to have no issues with that. If I have that same property and it is the exact same wiring, plumbing, heating, everything
Right.
from 1950, the insurance provider may have an issue with it.
Got it, got it. And typically on this home insurance, who is insured? Is it the homeowner? Who is insured on the policy? Or is it the mortgagee?
Well,
Lender.
Yeah, the lender needs to be listed, and
Okay.
they need to be able to recoup their investment as well. But it's typically the named insured.
Yes.
So whoever may be listed on the policy, and then typically their dependents or family members that are living within the home, they are read into the policy as named insureds. But yes, from there on a home insurance policy, we have the policy holder, their family. We can add, if they have in-laws living with them, we can add them listed to the policy. And then obviously the lender. The bank always needs to make sure they get their money back. So they are listed there as well.
Yeah, because that's the secondary form of repayment is a loss recovery,
Yeah.
in the event. Good. What are the typical coverages under home insurance? Are there anything that homeowners should not neglect? For example, sewer backup.
Yeah, so a standard comprehensive home insurance policy is going to have similar base coverages. So your dwelling, your outbuildings, your contents, your additional living expense, voluntary property payments. Most will have a guaranteed building replacement clause in there, possibly a single limit clause. Then we start getting into the endorsements.
I see.
And these are where your policies can really start separating. So it's sewer backup limits, bylaw coverages, identity theft coverages, overland water coverage, scheduled items, scheduled jewelry, scheduled art, things like that. But your base policy is similar. They may have different percentages or limits to it, but they're relatively similar.
Yes.
Then from there, we start getting into the endorsements on the policy. And those are the ones that usually you're going to claim on a little bit more, mainly sewer backup. I'm a firm believer that the more water damage coverage we can have on a property, the better off we are.
So this question is really for investors. If I buy a second property and I'm renting it, do I have to disclose as not being primary but an investment? And is there a separate way this policy will be looked at?
Yes, definitely. Great question as well. If you own a property and that property is being rented or used any other way than your primary residence, your insurance provider needs to be aware of that.
Okay.
And there's multiple ways that we can write that policy. So some clients decide to have their primary home insurance policy, and then we add additional locations on there as rented dwellings, rented condos. The other way of doing it is going with a specialty company and strictly insuring your rental properties on their own. Some clients decide to do this as It's separating the risk.
Okay.
So if my rental property has a claim, it doesn't necessarily impact my personal home insurance rate.
Makes sense.
But another one of the things that is not necessarily disclosed, Roshan, is if it's student rental versus a single-family dwelling. So some insurance providers will insure a single-family or most will insure a single-family dwelling, but they will not insure students. And if they do insure students, there's typically a maximum number of students that are able to live in that home. So having that conversation with your insurance provider, your insurance broker, is important to make sure that we're making the correct recommendations to make sure that your property is insured properly.
Wow. So what we are also seeing in this market is a lot of times people are renting the basement.
Yeah.
So what happens in that situation?
Not a problem. Right? So typically not a problem. So what we would do is we would write that policy as a primary home insurance policy with a second unit and disclose who is living in that lower level or additional level. Now, remember, your home insurance does not cover anything of your tenant. So it is very, very important that tenants renting a location get their own property or tenant's insurance to cover their belongings.
Wow. And do the tenants also have to take on the liability insurance?
They would have their own liability.
Oh, I see.
So they would be responsible for their guests, their friends that are coming over to visit them. That's where their liability policy would respond. And then in the event that there's an insured claim at the property, maybe a sewer backup, the tenant's living in the basement, the homeowner's policy would respond to fix the damages to the building and the structure. The tenant's policy would respond to replace their belongings.
Okay, now, if it is a condominium situation, let's say a high-rise condo, will there be 3 insurance in that case? A condo building insurance, that's under the building, homeowner having their homeowner in case something goes wrong inside, then a tenant, third party also having?
Yes, potentially so. So you're going to have the condo corp is going to have their insurance to cover their interest, their building, their dwelling.
Yes.
Then from there, you would have the unit holder, and if they are renting that, they would have a rented condo policy in place.
Okay.
In a condominium, as opposed to a standard tenant's policy or home insurance policy, we have to remember betterments and improvements. So that is anything that has been improved or changed above and beyond the standard base condo.
Got it.
From there, you would then have the tenant's policy, the renter, and they would have their own insurance for their contents as well.
Wow. So you got to make sure everything is checked. Just because you want to be an investor, you got to protect yourself.
You do. You have to. The recommendation is that you put into your lease that all tenants are required to carry their own tenants and liability insurance. And then the recommendation on my end is that you either ask for a copy of that policy or certificate of insurance, and you monitor and check on it year after year to be sure that that policy continues to be renewed.
Okay, great. So Stephen, I have a very, very important question to ask you. If I'm renovating my house, do I have to inform either yourself, insurance carrier, or what happens in that case?
Yes, good question. Good question. So oftentimes I'll receive a call after a renovation has been completed and they say, Stephen, I just renovated my home. And I say, oh, congratulations, what did you do? Well, we took the roof off and we extended and we did this and we did that. And we go, oh, thank goodness there was not an issue because your standard insurance policy is not designed for that type of risk.
Remember that, folks. Yes.
Remember that. So what happens is we have a policy called a course of construction or a builder's risk policy that goes into place during the course of construction and renovation of a property. It doesn't mean that painting the walls requires a course of construction or a builder's risk policy. If we're doing anything structural, taking down any walls, the extent of the renovation is really what determines if that coverage is, or that policy is required. But the recommendation is you have a conversation with your insurance broker, your insurance provider. They can then have a conversation with the insurance company to see what their risk level is.
Right.
And then we make the required changes. So yes, great question. Too often do I see after the fact, I get the call, I just did a massive renovation, added 2,000 square feet. We need to change the building evaluation.
Oh
well,
my God.
Good thing nothing happened. Thank goodness it's done.
Yes.
But we should have had a builder's risk policy in place at that time.
Wow. That if something goes wrong with the home during the construction, that you could be midstream $150,000 into it, And now if you haven't advised, it's impossible to recoup that 150 because nobody knows.
There's nothing. So when it would be called material misrepresentation, when a policy is changed without the notification or involvement of an insurance provider, your policy could be void at that point for not disclosing that information. So you're halfway through a renovation, there happens to be an issue, the home catches on fire, you know, you make the difficult call to your insurance provider, my house is on fire, well, what happened? I'm sorry, you never disclosed it to us, right? So insurance is there to be there for you in the event of a loss, but they need to be aware of any changes that are happening at that property.
Especially major, you know, including removal of load-bearing walls.
Oh, yes.
You know, obviously putting an addition, those are bigger scale, but it's always advisable that if you are doing some serious renovations, consult with your broker.
Always, always.
Already, do I have to carry some level of insurance?
You would. It would be the same kind of coverage that you have through the renovation, which would be a builder's risk. So of course in construction, builder's risk are basically the same policy. And that's the type of coverage you would require for doing your own build. So the general contractor, the builder may have their own liability insurance. Well, they should have their own liability insurance and coverage, but it's typically the responsibility of the homeowner to get their own builder's risk insurance.
And who pays for the premium for builder risk? Does the builder or
it would be the homeowner?
Homeowner.
It would be the homeowner. So
homeowner. Don't rely on saying the builder is taking care of it.
No.
Because if house burns down, it's 80% complete. Now you could be at a total loss if you don't have the right policy.
You could be, yeah. Now there's some of the larger firms out there, builders out there, that will get what's called a blanket builder's risk policy, and they would pass that cost on to the homeowner, to the end user. But typically speaking, it would be the homeowner that is going to cover that policy. And as well as that, just one last thing. You insure the total completed value from day one through to completion. So if you have a $1 million renovation or a $1 million build, you have to rate it based on $1 million from day one all the way through to the end of that renovation. And then these are not inexpensive policies. So have a conversation with your insurance provider prior to doing a build, because you should be aware of the cost involved and the coverage limitations as well. Not at all, not at all. And I've had that conversations multiple times where Condo Corp will insure their interest, not yours. So if you purchase a unit in a condo, a townhouse condo, a high-rise condo, you require your own insurance. As well as that, it's a requirement of the lender. So if you have a mortgage on a property, it's a requirement of the lender that they see confirmation of insurance prior to releasing funds.
Great. So Stephen, if a client is looking at a home and it has a wood-burning fireplace, or if it has a gas-burning fireplace, or if it has that outdoor fire pit outside, does that have any bearing in insurance?
So wood-burning fireplace, there's typically a surcharge on the policy for having a wood-burning fireplace. Then we have the wood-burning stoves that are within the home. So all of those stoves are subject to a wet inspection.
Okay.
And we typically have to have a wet inspection provided to the insurance provider prior to them extending coverage to that. Then it has to do with the distance from the wall, the fire materials used between the wall and the wood stove. So yes, there's multiple things that can impact premium, but the two that you just mentioned are accurate.
Yeah, so now what happens if I switched midstream from wood burning, and a lot of times people are inserting the gas? Should I be telling the insurance company?
Definitely, because we would lose that surcharge. So if we went from a wood-burning fireplace and that wood-burning fireplace were capped off, closed, never going to be used again, we could reduce that premium from the policy. The other thing is that home and auto insurance policies, as long as they remain active throughout the policy term, are very fluid.
I see.
So we can make changes and changes to the policy throughout the term. So, exact example, if we've gone from a wood-burning fireplace, we cap it off, put in a gas fireplace, We can remove that endorsement to the policy, save the premiums, put it back in our pocket. And to bring it back, you had mentioned the backyard fireplace.
Yes.
Now, we're aware that those are not legal in Burlington, correct?
That's right. All right. Well, Stephen from Warnica Insurance, it was amazing to have you. I have a lot of questions that home buyers and sellers are always asking that you've answered. I truly appreciate it. Where can people find you?
So I am on Google, Facebook. So it's Warnica and Associates Insurance if you're looking me up online. Facebook is the same thing. I'm also active on LinkedIn. But just type in Stephen Warnica or Warnica Insurance in the internet and you'll track me down.
So how do you spell Warnica Insurance?
Well, good question. It's WARNICA Insurance.
Okay. So guys, look, it's always important to work with someone who specializes and who is a full-time in this. And Stephen seems to be a guy who at first right away said it, look, I want to protect you in the manner that I want to protect my own family, which is a big endorsement for you to know that somebody who is expert in this field, is an industry a student, knows the changes that happens in the marketplace. If he is to protect his own family and would extend that to your family, I think that's a huge endorsement, and it's a big thank you for having. And we'll see you around.
Great, thanks, Roshan.
Okay.
I appreciate you having me in.
Where to live in Oakville and Burlington by Realtor Roshan. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel.